Hi, welcome. I am Jim Alsfoss, Director for the University of Idaho Center for Secure and Dependable Systems and Professor of Computer Science. Today is the first of a series of lectures we are going to give here starting in 2014 that we're going to make publicly available to the community, to industry, talking about cybersecurity issues. Some of the lectures are going to be like today's, which are mostly informative, training and awareness type of lectures talking about issues that people need to be aware of related to cybersecurity, safety and privacy on the internet, and using your wireless technologies, etc. Some of them will be more specific training based, hopefully used for software developers, system maintainers, or for the average home user or industry person. And some will be research talks or talks about latest trends and technologies from industry. This is all funded through a grant from the Idaho State Board of Education and the Idaho Legislature, part of what we call the Idaho Global Entrepreneurial Mission, which is to improve the economic climate in the state of Idaho specifically. And one way we feel to do that, and it's important, is to protect the security of our systems to prevent economic loss. So today what I want to talk a little about is our perspective, mostly my perspective personally, about cybersecurity in the modern era. I have a series of slides here. What I want you to understand is that you are under attack. And you need to stop before you use the internet. Take time to understand the risks and learn how to spot potential problems. Before you do anything on the internet, you should stop, then think. Take a moment to be certain the path ahead is clear. Watch for warning signs. Consider how your actions online could impact your safety or your family's. Clear example of this was an email that looked very legitimate from the university, something about my online, email account, except they spelled Idaho incorrectly. That's a warning sign, probably a spam email, a mistake. And then connect. After you stopped and thought about it and said, yes, the way ahead is clear, then connect, enjoy the internet with greater confidence. Know you've taken the right steps to safeguard yourself and your computer. And protect yourself and help keep a web safer place for everyone. Now this is the message from the Stop, Think, Connect organization, which we are a member of, whose goal is to reach out and educate the populace about security issues. And I will, during this course of series, we will be sharing more information from Stop, Think, Connect. But I wanted to share that with you because it's a great message. Stop, think, connect. Don't just immediately click on that link. Don't immediately open that email and then think about it, because then it's too late. Why are you under attack? There are billions of people on the internet using billions of devices, running millions of programs and apps. And some of these people want to do you harm. Some of those devices and programs or apps are malicious, while others have weak security. If you want to think about it in terms of the Internet of Things, during 2008, the number of things connected to the Internet exceeded the number of people on Earth. Things are not just smartphones and tablets. They are sensors. There's farms that have sensors plugged in their cows, detecting their health of the cows. There are sensors in your car and car information that is connected to the internet. There are devices everywhere monitoring what we're doing and using things. When you go to a grocery store and you swipe your credit card, that's on the internet. That's a device. By the end of 2012, the number of just mobile connected devices exceeded the world population. And it's expected to be 1.4 mobile devices per person in 2016. Traffic will hit 133 exabytes by 2016. That's equivalent to 33 billion DVDs of data, or 4.3 quadrillion MP3s, or 813 quadrillion text messages. That's a lot. For reference, 200 petabytes is the total amount of printed material in the world. 10 petabytes is the size of the Library of Congress material, including non-printed material. 1 exabyte is 1,000 petabytes. So we are looking at 133,000 petabytes. That's a lot of information. Traffic over the internet. So obviously a lot of duplication of stuff. 2 exabytes is the total new information generated in the world in 1999. 5 exabytes is all words ever spoken by a human being in the history of the world. Half a zettabyte is the total amount of digital information stored in 2009, which is 500 exabytes. So we're looking at transmitting a third of the total information stored in the world in 2009 every year over the internet. Huge amounts of information we need to protect. Huge amounts of information and spam and malicious software and garbage and junk and wonderful new things and inventions and ideas and games and entertainment and work and life-saving applications and, CAT scans of people's bodies sent to a doctor across the world to save their life. Tremendous amount of information all over there, and we got to watch out for it. If we look in the news, some of this is old, a couple of years ago, but malware was spreading, mobile malware. The evolution of mobile malware seems to be accelerating, especially applied to Android malware. Almost half of the UK businesses suffered insider data breaches. This was reported in October of 2012. Average insurance cost per data breach rose to $3.7 million. That's the cost per company. Increased sharply from $2.4 million in 2010, based on insurance claims that were submitted. The average data breach ranged from $25,000 to $200,000 in insurance costs. Legal damages stemming were much higher. And I want to talk a little about that. A great example I like to use, although this was back in 2010, Massachusetts Eye and Ear Infirmary Clinic had a laptop stolen. It had customer data, health data on that laptop. They were the victims of a theft, but they did not use due diligence to keep that laptop data protected, that customer data protected. They paid a $1.5 million fine because they were victims of a theft. Due diligence. It's your responsibility to protect that customer data. Your responsibility to do your best. And they didn't. Alaska Medicaid settled a HIPAA security case for $1.7 million. Phoenix Cardiac Surgery Group paid $100,000 in a fine. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee paid a $1.5 million for this healthcare information. There was a hospice last year in North Idaho. Laptop stolen. 450 customer records of 450 patients. They paid a $90,000 fine. Okay. There is a cost to not having adequate security, a true financial cost to industry. There's worms out there. One, I remember last year spreading Skype, or 2 years ago, spreading Skype instant message installs. This was an interesting one. So it installed on your machine what was called ransomware. Basically you got a Skype message saying, LOL, this is your new profile pic, but you clicked on the link and installed the ransomware. The ransomware basically locks up your machine with a warning message saying this machine has been used to access an internet porn site. This is illegal behavior, violation of U.S. law such and such and such and such. You must pay $200 to the U.S. government as a fine to have us unlock your computer. The link to pay accepted credit cards, but it wasn't a U.S. government website. And apparently a lot of people clicked the link and paid the fine without telling anybody because, they hadn't went to a porn site and they were embarrassed by it. It had a government seal on it and everything. Of course, you can take copies of government seals off of websites. There was a hacktivist group called itself Team Ghost Shell, leaked 120,000 records from more than 100 higher education computer networks. Student records, alumni records, donor records, employee records. They just wanted to show that there's a problem out there. They claim they're trying to help people, but releasing the records isn't helping. They use common, well-known types of vulnerabilities, website vulnerabilities, to get in through your website and get access to the actual data without authorization. Burlington City, County, Washington. Hackers got access to their bank account and transferred $400,000 out of a city account to multiple other accounts. Target recently, Target point of sales, they acknowledged this early December that intruders penetrated its systems beginning the day before the Thanksgiving holiday and maintained access for more than 2 weeks, potentially stealing credit and debit card details of an estimated 40 million customers. We had a similar breach in the Northwest with the Rosar's point of sale terminals. There's a grocery store here. This stuff is happening. It's happening all the time. It's making a lot of money for the bad guys. And that's why they're doing it. And they're not just stealing credit card information. They're stealing intellectual property from your companies or from companies. There's a huge drain actually out of the United States of intellectual property from companies. We're seeing it all the time where nation states or competing companies from overseas are coming in, breaking the computer network, stealing the latest inventions, the latest software, the latest technology, so that they can use it and sell it and profit off of hard work at the U.S. industries. If we look at the McAfee report from third quarter 2013, new malware found on the internet. Look at the growth from 2011. Over 20 million incidents of new malicious software malware every quarter, or these last 2 quarters of 2013. 15 million, 20 million, 20 million. Your virus software has to work really hard. Your scanners have to be updated continuously and kept up to date to protect you from this. And they're trying really hard to do this. This is a lot of work for them. But it's out there. They're finding this. If we look at security breaches, this is a Symantec Internet Security Threat Report in April of 2013. 604,000 user identities were exposed per data breach. They found 5,291 new software vulnerabilities, problems in commercial software you have purchased. 415 of these were on mobile operating systems. They're on your smartphones. They're on your mobile apps. And this is in 1 year. 74,000 unique malicious web domains. You go out to and some of the malicious web domains are, more than half of them are legitimate ones that have been taken over. They have a security breach and somebody goes in and modifies a web domain. So when you click on that domain, it downloads malicious software to your machine. 1 in roughly 300 emails is malicious. 23% comprising hyperlinks pointing to malware. You got a link, you click on it, you've downloaded malicious software to your machine. We're having targeted attacks where they're not sending out random emails. We're seeing actually a great increase in targeted attacks in the last few years. They're picking firms and companies and choosing information, like the email I saw, it was University of Idaho specific website information, email information. 50% of the targeted attacks are against companies with less than 2,500 employees. 31% were firms with less than 250 employees. Yet when Symantec goes out and talks, small firms say, oh, we're not victims. We're below the radar. Nobody pays attention to us. Nobody wants to hack into ours. We only have 120 employees. They're not going to attack us. Yes, they are. Because they know you believe that way. They know that the employees of those companies believe that, or the CEOs. When the students go out to work in industry, you got to keep this mindset in your mind when you're talking to your employer. Yes, you will be attacked. Every machine on the internet is connected to every one of these malicious users. And there's over 2.2 billion of them out there. Actually, let's talk about that. In the average Western country, we imprison 0.15% of our population. In the United States, 0.75%. We kind of overdo it. It's estimated that 1% of the general population are psychopaths. 3% of CEOs, I think it is. In the United States, 1% of the population works in the computing industry. Now, there's 2.2 billion internet users. So let's assume 1% of the users, the computing industry people, have skills to commit computer crimes. And it's probably a higher percentage of this, but I'm really keeping this low. These are very conservative numbers. Let's assume 0.5% of those people with those skills will commit the crimes. It's going to be higher than that. You've got to think it's got to be higher than that. But let's assume 0.5% of those with computer skills commit the crimes. Then there's still over 100,000 cyber crooks in the world. And guess what? Every single one's connected to your computer. Now, if you knew there was 100,000 criminals walking down your street, would you lock your front door? No, leave it wide open because it's safe. Because you can't see them. Because they're not really on your street. They're down the street. They're over in Virginia. They're in Russia. They're in Bulgaria. They're in Africa. Specifically Nigerian princes, right? I mean, we know about that one. They have lots of money they want to steal from you. So, that's just talking about general computing. Let's also talk about a concern we have with respect to critical infrastructures. If we look at the Department of Homeland Security, it has a list of things it considers critical infrastructures. These are things that are necessary for national defense and the economic welfare and well-being of the populace. Food and agriculture, commercial facilities, dams, energy production, information technology, postal and shipping, banking and finance, etc. There's a long list of these. Every single one of these is important to any country, any developed country, or developing country. Water. I don't care if you're developed or not, you need water. Food and agriculture, same thing. Most of these, in a developed country or developing country, most if not every single one of these critical infrastructures has critical computer components and software components managing, running, maintaining these systems. Most of them are on the internet. Most of them are vulnerable. Surveys, Homeland Security has done surveys and looked and found hundreds of devices out there connected to the power grid. Control systems controlling the power grid with internet-facing components. Those get broken into, they can shut down the power grid. Shut down dams. Cause chemical spills in waterways like West Virginia had, though that was a physical malfunction. It could be electronic malfunction. Nuclear reactors, nuclear materials and waste. Can I redirect some nuclear material? Shipping? Change the train, where the direction the train is going? Can I cause the caboose to suddenly put on the brakes while the train is going around a turn? Wirelessly, hack it and cause it to crash while it's going over a turn over by a river? Yes. Okay, these are things we have to worry about because these are things people are going to do if they haven't done them already. We have to worry about protecting the critical infrastructures. What type of vulnerabilities do we see? We see software errors. System developers, programmers make mistakes in software development, enabling entry points for malware and misuse. We see configuration errors, use of default passwords. It used to be, for example, you got a Linksys router. It was the admin account with the password Linksys to get in. That's now changed. You buy a Linksys router, it has a different default password for every machine that's shipped. Because too many people were not changing it. And so they said, we will provide this. We will actually, and I'm glad vendors are starting to think about it, we will ship things with improved security in them. Because the average user is not paying attention or doing anything, even though the manual tells them to. But I've been at places where they have multiple users and they have the user ID and password post-it noted to a terminal. So if anybody walks by, they can see it. Or they leave the default passwords on just to make life easier for them. Well, the default passwords are default for a reason. That means anybody can know them. Anybody can access the manuals, and the manuals are online and on the internet. Insufficient access controls, misunderstanding of the interactions between components, those are common problems. The processes, maybe incomplete testing or validation, poor training. Or maybe the problem is management. You're developing software, management says, we're going to cut the budget, cut out the security part. Let's ship this product. We'll patch it later. Or, I'm sorry, I know you need to do security testing. The development team just finished the final product development Wednesday. We're shipping on Friday. Do what testing you can. A lot of this is lack of an understanding of the actual problems that are out there. The threats, the vulnerabilities. How at risk we really are. How at risk your software is, and what vulnerability that puts into your customers as you ship vulnerable software. And litigation has not yet caught up with this, but it will. Liability and insurance has not yet caught up with it, but it will. I mean, if I shipped a car with faulty tires that would break, or brakes, automatic brake systems that would break, I'd have to do a recall and repair them at least, and probably pay fines. And if somebody died because of it, I'd be liable. And that's going to happen with software. It's starting to happen. We got to think about that. And then we have people problems. People who use bad passwords. They put customer data and intellectual property on USB drives and laptops. They share information with strangers. Or just the guy who claims to be from IT, or the guy who really is from IT, but you give him your password anyway because, I don't know, he thought it was useful. Or not using security software. Oh, it's too expensive. I can't afford it. It's much cheaper. I'm not going to spend the $30 for a 1-year license for a virus scanner. Or download it for free from Microsoft because it just takes me too long. Here's some, now this is more techie-ish. There's something called an SQL injection attack. SQL is the structured query language. It's a way of requesting information from a database. And it's a common way for e-commerce sites and other websites to access information. The problem is they will take the queries, like we have select star from where owner equals plus username, and we can put in information. We build it, select star from where owner equals whatever the username is, and an item name equals item. And so it selects everything from the database where the owner is, say, me, and an item has a certain name. Supposed to do that. Problem is, if I lie about my name and I put in the special coding like name, quote, ending the quotation around my name, or A equals A, and A always equals A. So where this says where owner equals username and, well, actually becomes where owner equals name and true, or true. So now I get everything, and item name equals item name, so I get all items from the database owned by anybody. Owner equals Wiley, and item name equals name, or A equals A. Okay, in this case it would be item name. So I get everything owned by Wiley. Or vice versa, I could put it in here and said owner's Wiley, or A equals A. Get everything in the database. Common problem. That's how they did that was the attack against the university websites. They do this and suddenly they download all the information on the database because it's available in the database, and the authentication was just bypassed because somebody didn't put the correct validation in on user data. They took user data from the wild internet. It's like seeing a piece of gum on the floor, picking it up and throwing it in your mouth. You don't know where it's been, but who cares? It's good, it's chewy, we'll use it. That's what, unvalidated user input is. That dirty piece of gum, but people still do it. That's one of the problems. OS command injection. Example code intends to take the name of a user and list the contents of a user's home directory. So we have a username post. This is a PHP code. But if we put in an attack, a semicolon remove minus RF, recursively, forcefully, so list everything in your home directory and remove everything on the machine. Oh yeah, it'll list everything, then delete it all. Merry Christmas. I accidentally did this my first week on the job here in 1991. I was, well, not quite this. I was changing access control permissions, but I put a space in a path, and so I changed access control permissions of everything, starting at the root directory on down in the machine, and made it so nobody could access it except me, except I didn't have permission to go in and use stuff at the root directory, so I shut down the whole machine. Told the sysadmin that was a bad permission to give me to allow me to do that. He had never thought somebody would try to do it. It was a mistake. I put a space in. But somebody could have done it deliberately. Not one more example. Buffer copy without checking the size of input. This is called the buffer overflow attack. We've known about these since the late 60s. You know, this problem. You give space, oh, let's allow a 20-character last name. But it doesn't restrict or limit when we do a scan. We're scanning something the user typed in, we're storing it in the buffer. And what happens is they put in too long of a name, and it overflows this buffer, and where it goes is onto the control stack of the program, changing the return address of the program. And you include in this attack executable code. And you basically do a runtime patch on the code and allow it to execute whatever you want. Or just crash the machine. We know how to do this. We just make sure we only copy the first 20 characters, and we stop, or 19 actually. Leave a space for a termination character. But people developing software don't put that in their software. They don't do that check. Why? Either they weren't taught to, they didn't think about it, or, well, it slows down their code. Machines are getting faster all the time. It's not going to slow down your code that much. The user typing the input is much slower than your code. You can do the check. They won't notice. Cross-site scripting is another one where, this is one I love. You go to a website and you see places where people post comments, or you got blogs or other thing where somebody who's visiting a website can type in some comment and it shows up on the website. Well, the browser that's viewing that website doesn't know that content as being user-generated versus web manager-generated. So you can put commands in there to say, hey, do this thing. It'll pop up a dialog box, for example, asking you to enter a username and ID and send it to the person who sent the code. It'll allow it to redirect your code. There's a whole bunch of examples of this. There's one we have which is called clickjacking, where actually as you move the mouse over, it grabs control of the mouse. When you click, you think you're clicking on one spot, you're actually clicking on something else, which usually is used to give authentication. Oh yeah, go ahead and install something. You didn't see that it said go ahead and install, but you just clicked on it. It was invisible, but it was hidden in this code, redirecting you. One thing some people have used the cross-site scripting for is to force your site, your browser, to then visit another site. And that site gets money for every visitor to that site. You know, it's a redirection attack. And every time you try and browse something, it hops over and does that. Actually, my son got infected with one of those that actually gets into downloaded a patch to the operating system, make sure every time he opened the browser and clicked a search term, it would redirect him to this malicious site. The site just so they could get revenue. You know, for every time he visited. It didn't cost us anything, just made it hard for him to do any searches. And actually, it didn't do it every time. It did about 1 out of 3 searches, 1 out of 4 searches. All this stuff happens because we have a view of the world. We see a website and we say, that's acceptable. That's being downloaded from the internet. We're trusting the person who created it to some point. But there's content in there that somebody else generated, and we're giving it the same level of trust. We're not thinking. The developers are not thinking about the context in which this is really existing. There's a semantic disconnect between their mindset of what the code is really what the code is doing and what it's really doing. This is just a bad example. This pops up a login thing saying, oh, hey, I'm having you log in, cross-site scripting on the trusted site, and I'm having you attack.example.com steal password PHP, so it can steal your password. And we can even set this up so it does that and then relogs you into the site so you don't notice a problem. Other problems could be missing authentication for critical functions, missing authorization, use of hard-coded credentials, the default passwords, missing encryption of sensitive data, unrestricted uploads of files with dangerous types. Hey, let me put on your website anything I want, or your machine. Reliance on untrusted inputs in a security decision, execution with unnecessary privileges, cross-site request forgery, improper limitation of a path name to a restricted directory, etc. A lot of these are some of the most common things we see on the website. They're well known, they're posted out there, but people have to have due diligence. We've seen tools out there that are, we had a student do a project, look at a tool that exists that creates these websites for you. That's the one we did the clickjacking on. because it created websites vulnerable to the clickjack attacks. So the tools are not necessarily doing the right thing. We got some problems. What is the source of these, vulnerabilities? There is a disconnect between the programmer's semantic view of the world and reality. Now, whether it's the person actually developing the website or the person who developed the tool that the person developing the website used, I don't know where the semantic disconnect is. There may be a misunderstanding the interpretation of user input by a server, SQL, operating system, web client server, or a misunderstanding of the range of possible input values, the size of input. I talked about the buffer overflow. There was a case back early, Windows NT command line tool. At that time, Windows NT, a full path name, /user, /gimaf, / et cetera, couldn't be more than 255 characters. They had a 300 character buffer, figuring there might be a couple extra characters put in. Nobody would deliberately type something longer, right? Or accidentally type something longer, right? But deliberately, they cut and paste. Blue screen the machine. Windows command line tool shouldn't blue screen your machine because of an invalid input. But it did because the programmers didn't think somebody would do this. The best example I like to give nowadays is, when you talk to a programmer, software developer, they'll say, nobody would do that. That would crash their machine. Nobody would deliberately type this in. It'd be a waste of time, and the behavior would crash the machine. Yeah. Nobody would learn to fly an airplane just to crash it into a building, right? Nobody would do that. There are people out there who don't think the way you do. There are people out there who are willing to give up everything, willing to take everything, willing to hurt you. And some of them are part of that 2.2 billion people on the internet. Some of them are bad. Some of them are malicious. Some just have fun seeing other people get hurt. Stealing things, making data free. They're out there, and they're connected to your device. I don't think any of us has just one internet device anymore. And we got another problem. This is from a paper Paul Oman and I wrote. If we look at the people who are computer professionals, if we look at the 3.3 million computer professionals in the United States, people who have jobs, the Bureau of Labor Statistics say require a bachelor's degree in computer science. There's 3.3 million of them, little more than the number of cashiers there are in the United States. And if you go to any Walmart, you'll see why the cashier numbers are going down, because we're getting automated scanning machines. That's computer scientists replacing the cashiers. And computer science jobs do pay better than cashiers anyway. Of those, 40% of them have a computer and mathematical science education. Only 40% of those in jobs that require a bachelor of science in computer science have a degree in computer science. They've had the training and the education. Another 15% have engineering degrees. Small amount have health and biological science degrees or other related science. Actually, a higher percentage than the health and biological or other sciences, the behavioral, social, and economic sciences. Management, information, administration jobs, other non-science and engineering jobs. This is from an NSA survey of the professionals in 2010. 40% have a degree in computer science. And not everybody who has a degree in computer science learns about computer security. And I bet these other 60% never learn. Or rarely learn. Now fortunately, another part of the survey is a lot of them do training and education. Their companies do say you need to go out and do training and education. Usually it's on project management. Usually it's on workplace behavior, workplace environment, not necessarily on developing secure software. It may be on how to build a new website. It may be on using a new tool, but not necessarily on how to do good development, how to avoid a buffer overflow attack. We've got to fix that. People are our problems. People will also, the users of the systems will bypass. I'm missing, this is a security gate here. And you see all the tire tracks around it because it's easy to get around, so why go through? This is a hospital parking lot. People will bypass security if it's easy to do and if they see it as a hindrance to what they want to do. It's human nature. So we've got to make security easy, relevant, and not a hindrance. So, things to think about in the IT world, for example. What is your corporate IT security policy? How often is it reviewed? How often is it changed? How often are employees trained in it? How effective is it? Do you require complex passwords? Do you require passwords changed frequently? Do you require an auto lockout on your screen? What's your software patching policy? Is your auto lockout too ineffective? There was a study done of a company in the UK. They had an auto lockout policy. Every 15 minutes the computer screen would black out and you'd have to re-enter the policy. They're estimating people were, re-enter the password. People were spending a week a year in time typing in passwords. People didn't like this. Their job actually required them to read a lot on the screen without changing pages. So they installed mouse jigglers, something you set your mouse on that jiggles every so often so the computer screen says, oh, you're using a computer, it doesn't lock out. Then they'd leave their desk. And now there would be no lockout. So a security feature made the system less secure. And that's something to think about. Do your policies get in the way? What do people do to avoid them? I remember a classic U.S. government military system. They said, we're going to air gap it, no connection to the outside world. People liked logging in from the outside. They hated it. So they took their classified top secret data onto a completely unclassified, unsecure machine with a dial-up modem available. They actually made it less secure because they put it on an insecure operating system because they wanted to do their stuff. So we got to think about this too. We got to think about the people. So one thing we've done here at the Center for Secure and Dependable Systems and with the iGEM initiative is we're trying to address some of these issues. So CSDS was created to foster research and education for innovative tools and techniques for design, development, and analysis of high-assurance computing systems. We look at network security protocols. We look at operating system security, especially for real-time embedded systems. We look at hardware security, analysis of modern microprocessors. We look at the software engineering of secure systems. I mean, these are things we've done in the past. How do we build a more secure system? How do we analyze it? How do we maintain it? Some examples, secure software and design analysis of commercial code. So we've actually worked with commercial vendors, but here's one specifically for a high assurance, secure, real-time operating system kernel. This is for use in embedded systems, communication systems, a type of operating system kernel that would control pipelines or laser printers or helicopters or SCADA control systems for the power grid. We provided training for their software engineers, security review of their security architectures, their design documents, analysis and assembly of their C code and assembly code. We developed some new tools, and we're still developing and expanding these tools to analyze their source code, to analyze the flow of information to see if there's possible vulnerabilities in here, detection of some of these types of attacks that I've mentioned. We've analyzed security impact of modern microprocessors, looked at the Intel i7, the cell broadband engine, P4080 communication processors, looked at their security features, looked at just the way they're architected. What's the impact on a high assurance system? What happens if you take your secure code that worked on a single core processor and move it to a multi-core processor? Do things break? What if you move from just one generation of a processor to the next generation? What new features in the next generation processor are you unaware of that could cause a security vulnerability? Same thing with operating systems. Same thing with underlying platforms. You switch from Windows 7 to Windows 8, there's new stuff in Windows 8 you may not know about that may affect you. You should switch from one version of a web browser to another. New features you may not be aware about. Things change. So we look at that. We've developed frameworks for analysis for that type of stuff. Secure ad hoc networks. We evaluated security schemes for ad hoc sensor networks and mobile networks to enhance communication efficiency, data privacy, system security. Looked at security tagging for what we call a zero kernel operating system with hardware support. Partnered with Cornell University on the development of a new operating system with fine-grained security tagging. Basically, add the security labels at the lowest level in the system, have it propagate through the hardware, have the hardware help you. Cornell developed the hardware. We've developed some simulators to support that modeling and analysis of that, modified a real-time operating system to support the security research. Those are just some of the things we've done that I was talking about. State of Idaho, a couple years ago, established a program, the iGEM program, Idaho Global Entrepreneurial Mission, I call it partnership, but to create new enterprises and high-paying, knowledge-based economy jobs by increasing strategic areas of research and development in the state, through targeted partnerships among industry, higher education, and government. There's three pieces to this. There's money that's specifically going to the Center for Advanced Energy Studies down in Idaho Falls, which is a collaborative industry, university, government research entity for looking at energy studies, and they do a lot of wonderful stuff there. Money's going to the Department of Commerce, which currently the current versions of it have allowed infrastructure improvement at the educational institutions in the state, the universities, that specifically benefit research projects that involve industry. Do we need new technology on the campus that would help us do things with industry? For example, one thing we have now is a machine we call Big STEM for science, technology, engineering, mathematics, modeling, and simulation. 160 core processors, 4 terabytes of RAM. Every processor core can access all 4 terabytes of RAM. We can do wonderful simulations on this machine. There's problems that can't be solved anywhere else in the world in any reasonable time frame without using a machine like this. We have it. We're going to partner with industry on doing some studies. There's a whole category, for example, of medical drugs, where there's a style of research where you do simulation of protein structures to determine the interactions of the drugs with these proteins. But we're limited how big the structures can be because of the simulation limits. We're now able to grow that quite a bit because of this machine. There's working with Micron Corporation on dealing with heat dissipation on the microprocessors and modeling and simulating that using this machine. Water flow and control in river basins and other things. We have to use really large-scale grids and don't necessarily get a good model of flood control and waters. Now we can shrink the grids because of this machine. That's a type of thing. Now, iGEM is partially supporting that. That's a type of thing where we get the support in. We have the infrastructure. We can now partner with industry to do these things. We can do wonderful computer security simulations, network attack simulations using this machine. The other piece of this is money to the universities to grow core competencies. The University of Idaho's version of this, the one grant to the University of Idaho given, was to grow our cybersecurity faculty cluster, hiring 2 computer scientists, one up here on campus, one down at Idaho National Lab, an electrical engineer focusing on the power grid, the smart grid information system, civil engineer for transportation control systems, information systems, and a sociologist, because like I said, we got to worry about people. And believe me, engineers don't understand people. I'm just hoping the sociologist understands engineers. And we're also working with people in business, and we're working with psychology and human factors engineering. The grant also provides support for visiting scientists, hiring research scientists or researchers, and an enhanced software security teaching and research lab. We're actually getting new equipment in our Radical lab, which is the reconfigurable attack defend instructional computing lab we have on campus. Also helping, the Big STEM project. We've got money in the grant for technology transfer, knowledge transfer, things like these talks. We're going to be sponsoring a conference on campus in April, or in town in April. It's actually at the University Inn. Cybersecurity symposium dealing with public-private partnerships. We're going to have industry people come in. We're going to have academics. We're going to have government people come in, students and professors, and we're going to look at ways of sharing the knowledge we're generating in academia and sharing the problems that industry is facing so we can communicate and work better. And money for active partnerships in regional industry, travel for the faculty to go and talk to industry, for industry to come and talk to us. So this is all where iGEM fits into this. We're looking for new partners at the University of Idaho in terms of industry partners. Provide student internships and placement for hires. Real-world projects, senior design, graduate level projects. Our students are very interested in working on real-world projects. Faculty are too. And we want to work with industry on projects that make sense to industry. Bringing guest speakers to campus or remotely to talk about things. We're hoping to have some as part of this seminar series. Training opportunities, both ways, for us to train industry about software security technology, for us to train us about issues they're seeing. Software analysis, we have that capability. Joint research and development. Feedback, guidance. financial support. I'll always ask for financial support from industry. We're tying in with other academic partners, other universities and colleges. We're in the middle of signing some agreements with the University of Washington, Idaho State University, some community colleges in the region. We're already members of a national consortium called the I3P, Institute for Information Infrastructure Protection. We have an agreement with MIT and Cornell University and Dartmouth and Virginia Tech. We're working with those. We're expanding that. We're going to start looking at K through 12 outreach as well and things we can do for training and education there. Government agency labs. Final thing, we only got a few minutes here. Cybersecurity market forecast. With continued overhauling of traditional computing environments to a more connected infrastructure, the need to secure these will keep growing, according to a cybersecurity market report. It was estimated in 2011 the international market was 63.7 billion US dollars, expected to reach 120 billion by 2017. A healthy growth of 11.3% per year. Pretty good. By 2017, the overall cybersecurity market, public sector, utilities, vertical, is estimated to contribute maximum market share of 30%. There's a whole bunch of numbers in here I'm not going to worry about. There's a lot bigger security market than there is a potato market. I think the potato market is $3 billion a year, or the U.S. potato market. I've got to look at those numbers. There's potential here. And you can do it all in rural Idaho. You could do it, all you need is a connection to the internet. Your business can be in the cloud, and all your work can be done in great regional areas. The potential is here to grow companies anywhere in the world to work in this area. If we look at growth in employment, not work growth, but just growth in employment, this is from Bureau of Labor Statistics. The blue is the current employment. Red is projected employment by 2020. Oh, so current was 2010 numbers. This is 700,000 for this line. These are the top STEM job categories: science, technology, engineering, math. Computer support specialists, computer system analysts, computer system software engineers and applications, sales representatives, I don't know how they got in there, wholesale marketing, scientific products, computer system software engineers, computer programmers, network computer system administrators, computer information system managers, information security analysts, web developers, etc. All electrical engineers, all civil engineers, all mechanical engineers. Okay, computing stuff tops this out. Estimated from 2010 to 2020, we will need 750,000 new people doing computer jobs. The U.S. Universities are expected to graduate about 200,000 during that time period. 400,000 at the most. A little short. Somebody else can get those jobs. So tips and advice. Last thing, keep a clean machine. Keep security software current. Automate your software updates. Protect all devices that connect to the internet. There is virus protection available for your cell phones. You should use it. Plug and scan USB devices and other devices. Protect your personal information. Secure all your financial accounts. Ask for protection beyond passwords. If you go to somebody that's dealing with financial information, they don't seem to have good security for you, ask them to do better. Or tell them you'll take your business elsewhere. Make passwords long and strong, combining capital letters with numbers and lowercase letters and symbols. Don't use anything that's directory derivable from a dictionary. It should be unique account, unique passwords. That's hard to do, but you need to do that. You can forget a password. You can write it down, but you keep it safe. You don't leave it on your desk. Or as one guy did, he was told not to leave it on the desk, so the post-it note was on the ceiling above his cubicle. You don't do that. You put it somewhere secure and safe. There are utilities you can put on your phone that are password protected. One password protects your other passwords. You can do that. Own your own online presence. When available, set privacy and security settings on websites to your comfort level. And connect with care. When in doubt, throw it out. Don't read that email. Don't click on that link. If it looks suspicious, it probably is. Get savvy about Wi-Fi hotspots. You log in and you access your bank from a hotspot. It's possible it's not there. I don't know how many times I see free Wi-Fi on them in the airports, and it's another computer. It's not a hotspot. Protect your money. Make sure you have the HTTPS or SHTTP prefixes, etc. These are all stop, think, connect type things. And be web-wise. Stay current. Keep pace with new ways to stay safe. Think before you act. Back it up. and be a good online citizen. Safer for you. Me means safer for you. Post only about others what you want them to post about you. Help the authorities fight crimes by reporting things when you find it. Report to, with the university, go to help.uidaho.edu or helpdesk@uidaho.edu. Send them if you get spam email so they can warn other people. Thank you. I'm out of time. So I will see you in 2 weeks.